Carolina State University's 1890 Research and Extension. We are so pleased today to offer yet another monthly webinar. This webinar is how to obtain your hemp farming license. And we have some experts here who have graciously accepted our invitation to present to you a step-by-step guide on how to apply for your hemp license for the state of South Carolina. So now I do hear a little feedback. So one thing I'm going to ask of our participants is if you could kindly please place your device on mute and keep it on mute throughout the duration of today's event. We would greatly appreciate that. We will have a question and answer period made available to you, and that will be towards the end of today's program. So if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat box, and the moderator will ask the panelists your specific questions. So as I said, this is South Carolina State University's 1890 Research and Extension, and we serve as the public service arm for, of course, South Carolina State. And so we offer many public service programs and activities throughout the state of South Carolina. We have 7 offices, and then we also conduct problem-solving research for issues impacting South Carolinians. So I am not going to be the delay of this program. As I've said, we have 3 panelists who have the knowledge to be able to help you all with this process. Our first guest is Dr. Florence Anuro, who is a plant pathologist here at South Carolina State University. And we're going to start with Dr. Anuro. Followed by Dr. Anuro will be Jody Carter, who is the Orangeburg County Executive Director for the Farm Service Agency. And Mr. Carter will tell you all what you need to do in order to apply for your FSA number, which you will need when submitting your application to the state. And then followed by Mr. Carter, we'll have Vanessa Elsala, who is the hemp program coordinator with the South Carolina Department of Agriculture. So without further ado, let me turn the program over to Dr. Florence Anuro.
Thank you, Ms. Mosley. Can everybody hear me?
Yes,
Awesome. As she had mentioned, I am Dr. Florence Anuro. I'm a plant biologist and an environmental biologist, specializing in sustainable and what is called now regenerative agriculture, and also hemp research specialist. So today's webinar, it's mostly focused on what you need to do to get your license. And Ms. Vanessa will be telling you more about that. But in order to start, I wanted to give you some basic information that you need to have, in addition to the information you're getting from the FSA agent, and also from Vanessa, who is the hemp coordinator for SCDA, South Carolina Department of Agriculture. So without any further ado, please advance the slide. The first slide here, I just called it "What is the Buzz?" About hemp. And so basically, everybody is interested in hemp cultivation now. And in order to make sure that you do it right, you have to have the basic knowledge. And I have to also mention, and you'll get more information towards the end of this webinar, there will be a series of other trainings and webinars that give you the tools that you need to make sure that you're jumping into the hemp cultivation or business with all the knowledge base that you have to do it right. So I usually have this picture here whenever I'm giving my seminar, because it gives you an idea of exactly what this plant is. And as you can see, it tells you all the different uses that you can get from hemp. Many of you may already know this, but some people still confuse industrial hemp with marijuana, which is also called hemp on the street. So this picture here tells you all of the different uses, starting with the seeds, and you know all those products that are hemp related. And then of course you see all the hemp stock on the right hand side. There are at least over 50,000 uses. And there are some people even say 250,000 uses. So, but we get more information on that as we present your seminars to you. Next slide, please. So just a little bit of information about industrial hemp and marijuana, because a lot of people are still hesitant and have some fear about growing industrial hemp because there's a stigma that is attached to the name hemp. But industrial hemp and marijuana are different in many ways. They're related, but they're different. So here you see the first bullet here. It tells you that industrial hemp, they are from the same plant, the species, and the genus is Cannabis sativa. But the thing that separates them is the regulations regarding use and growing of them and what they contain. We call those the chemical profiles. So if you look at here, you will see that it didn't take, it wasn't until 2018 that the Farm Bill actually allowed many states to start giving farmers license to grow. And many of you, and I'm not sure what the profile of the participants here, many of you may be beginning farmers who just want to know if I need to get into this hemp growing and business. And some of you may already have tried it. But the important thing is that if you're already in it, how well did you do the first year and your second year? And if you didn't do it right, you need to make sure you have the knowledge base and the skills and the tools to do it right. If you're a beginning farmer, this particular webinar is just right for you because it will tell you how to not only get your license, but also all the things you need to do prior to starting to fill that application process. And it also tells you here some of the things that people usually ask about. So why is hemp not as bad as marijuana? The problem is what they contain. On this slide, you see that the industrial hemp and the marijuana, which is the bad cousin, as they usually call it on the street, the bad cousin of industrial hemp, they both contain some chemical compounds that are very useful. And if you are, I'm going to use my cursor here to show you. So those group of compounds you find in the industrial hemp, they're called the cannabinoids. And of course, they are the three primary ones. There are so many other ones, but the ones that people are really interested in are the THC, and I put it in red, the CBD, and then of course the CBN. The THC and the CBD are very popular now, but CBN is beginning to people are beginning to pick interest in there. In our series of trainings and webinars, we'll talk more about all of this chemical profile and how it matters what you do when you're growing in order to make sure you have the right product. And then of course, down here, it tells you just about the plant that the reason why the marijuana is different from the industrial hemp is the concentration of this THC here. The THC for industrial hemp, it's only, for industrial hemp, it's only 0.3%. And that's what the law allows it to be. If you are deciding to grow industrial hemp, especially for the CBD oil, even for the fiber, you have to make sure that you stay within that limit. Okay, next slide. So what must you know in order to even start to think to get your license? Again, you can get your license. It costs money to get your license. You have to make sure that you've done your background work. You have to know your soil history, because a lot of people will either own your land right now or you're going to acquire land or buy land. So before you do that, make sure you know the history of the soil. What was growing in that soil prior to your buying it? Or if it's your land, what have you grown in that land before you even consider growing hemp in it? And again, our next training coming up, you get more information towards the end of this. will give you all of that. And so I don't want to get too deep into it. You have to know your seed source. Industrial hemp is a very expensive plant to grow. The seeds are more expensive than most agricultural crop seeds, even the seedlings. So, and again, you get all that information in our next training. Then, of course, you require the license, which by the end of this seminar today, you should have all the information you need to start your process. And please remember also that the 1890 office, it's here to help you all through the process of application if you ever have questions after this webinar, as well as the SCDA office. You have to know the requirements for testing the THC. Okay, you need to know that, because if you decide to grow, know that you have to do the right things while you're growing. Otherwise, your entire investment will be gone. It is very important that you also know before you get into the hemp growing that if your THC level, meaning that your plants that you've selected to grow, if the THC crosses that 0.3% threshold, then your plant is destroyed. And a lot of people had that problem their first year of jumping into that. You need to know what you're planting for. Are you growing for fiber, for grain, for oil, or a combination of that? Those are very important. Next slide. And then also you need to know if you're growing for the hemp CBD oil, know that the things that you have to do while growing it is different from if you're growing fiber. But again, we will give you all the knowledge and the skills that you need once you make that decision. But that's something that should be at the back of your mind when you're making the decision to get a license. You need to know your plants. When you're buying seeds, know your seed source. I've mentioned that in the previous slide, but also make sure that you have people or references that will tell you whether your seed source is what they're supposed to be. For seeds that are used for CBD oil, they have to be feminized seeds. Somebody please mute your phone. I'm sorry, mute your microphone. Thank you. And so the CBD oil production requires a lot of knowledge, because if you don't have the right seeds, you also make sure that your product is, nobody's going to want you to buy your CBD oil. The reason is because the THC level, if it's high, it is useless. Okay, so make sure you know your seeds. Make sure you have a way of determining and certifying that your seeds are feminine seeds if they say they are, or masculine seed, because a lot of people were told that the seed they were buying were feminized seeds, and they ended up not being that. But we'll tell you more about that in our next series of webinars and training. You need to know about your harvesting and storage needs. It's not just getting the license and the land. You have to have all this background work done before you even think of getting your license, okay? What are you growing for your end product use? Do you know who you're going to sell your end product use? If you're growing for fiber, where do you take your raw harvested materials to? Who are you going to send it to? Do you know where they're being processed? So all of those things are very important. But again, the good news is that the resources to help you, the 1890 office, and of course the SCDA office, there's a lot of resources that will help you figure out where these things are. But it's very important that you do all of this, okay? I ended up on this slide by saying that you need to get adequate knowledge before you decide to grow, because that's very important. Next slide, please. Okay, so the next question is the economic value. Right now, industrial hemp is very popular because the market potential is still growing every year. And every year there's more discovery of even better things to do with industrial hemp. Initially, it was just the pharmaceuticals and the oils and the seeds, which gives you protein. But there's so many other things that you can use industrial hemp for. And as people discover it, and also industries are beginning to buy into the green economy, then it's becoming a booming market for from the agricultural sector. So these are a list of all of the things that hemp can be potentially used for, but the list is continues to grow. But all of this we'll cover in details in our next series. We have one coming next week, and Ms. Mosley will give you more information about that. So we cover each of these different usage here, so you really know what you're growing for, because that's very important. Next slide, please. And that's it. So I just wanted to give you those basics, things you need to know. So as you're getting your information from the Farm Service Agency and from the SCDA Office for Licensing, those things that I just presented to you, you need to have them at the back of your mind before you go into it. My contact information, next slide. It's here, or you can also contact the 1890 office if you have any questions that you think I might answer. She did, Ms. Mosley mentioned that at the beginning, all questions will be saved to the towards the end of the presentations from all the parties, and then we'll be able to answer your questions. Thank you, and I look forward to helping you grow in your hemp venture. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Anuro. Thank you so much. And yes, well, I can tell you right now, it doesn't hurt to share our next webinar with you all. So as Dr. Anuro mentioned, we will be hosting a series of hemp webinars. And so our next hemp webinar will be Thursday, February 18th at 2:00 p.m. And so as Dr. Anuro said, these webinar series will give you everything that you need to know to grow. All right. And we have captured your email, so we'll definitely make sure that you all receive the next invitation to our webinar. So we're going to move forward with the program, and I will now toss it over to Jody Carter. Again, he is the County Executive for Farm Service Agency here in Orangeburg, South Carolina. Jody.
Thank you, Liz. I hope you can see us. I also brought along Miss Chris Frazier with me. She's our farm loan specialist in Orangeburg County. So she's a lot smarter than I am at all the farm loan stuff. Okay. Go ahead and share the PowerPoint with you. All right, I hope everybody can see that. So like Ms. Liz said, we are the Farm Service Agency. There is a local FSA office in every county, so this doesn't just pertain to Orangeburg. Most counties will have their local office. I'll put a link up at the very end that shows you where you can find your local office at, no matter what county you're at in the state or in the nation. So who are we? Farm Service Agency is the U.S. Department of Agriculture, so a USDA, or a branch out of USDA that serves all farmers, ranchers, and agricultural producers through delivery of effective and efficient agricultural programs. The agency provides American farmers with strong safety net through the administration of farm commodity disaster programs, as well as conserving the nation's natural resources through the Conservation Reserve Program, also known as CRP. The agency also provides credit to agricultural producers who are unable to receive private or commercial credit, including special emphasis on beginning, minority, and women farmers and ranchers. So we kind of added just a synopsis of some of the programs we cover on the actual program side. Some of these would pertain to everyone, some of them would not. It all depends on what you're growing and what your crop is. I'm not going to go through these, but it's kind of an example of what we go through or what we have available to everyone. And as I mentioned, I got Miss Chris with me. She does all our farm loan stuff. She'd be the one to ask questions for, contact to get direct information on this stuff. But we do offer direct operating loans. They're used to purchase items such as livestock and feed, seed, farm equipment, fuel, insurance, pay living expenses, make minor improvements. We offer microloans as well as direct farm ownership loans. That talks about our youth loans, loans for women farmers, ranchers, minorities, and emergency loans in the case of a natural disaster such as drought, flooding. So kind of what we had come into the webinar wanting to get out to everyone is how to get started with us. So you need to contact the local FSA office. And like I said, there's the link that we talked about that would get every office in the nation. So you can schedule appointments. Since we are currently closed to the public, we are phone appointments only, but you can call in or email in. What you would need to bring on that first visit would be documentation showing your proof of identity, such as driver's license, social security card. You would have to show us proof that you're leasing that farm or in control of that farm, or either you own the farm. So, of course, a good example of that would be a deed, a lease from the owner, a voided check showing where you paid your land rent to the owner. Any of those items will work. So once you bring that into the office, we'll go through and we'll help you figure out, make sure that you know the acreage is correct on the farm. We have a GIS system, much like what you'd see on a county tax system, like Orangeburg GIS, for example. And we'll go through and we'll map out your farm and make sure all your cropland is being accounted for and whatnot. So directly pertaining to hemp with Farm Service Agency, South Carolina Department of Ag wants you to certify your hemp. So the final date to certify hemp in the state of South Carolina is August 15th. And excuse me for that 2020, so that would be 2021 for this year. So again, that's August 15th, 2021. You'll need to certify your acreage with Farm Service Agency. What that means is you'd have to have that farm number, just like we talked about in the last slide. You have to have the farm number to get the permit to start with, and then also you'll have to have that farm number to certify it. That simply means after you plant the crop, you would come down to your local Farm Service Agency, and you would basically tell us how many acres you planted, what the irrigation status is, what the plant date was, and who has a share in that crop. We'll document that accordingly. We'll get you to sign a FSA 578, and the crop will be certified. You can then, we'll pertain that record, and you can also turn that record over into South Carolina Department of Agriculture. Another note that I added in here was we do have the NAP program, which is actually crop insurance for numerous crops that are not insured under RMA or federal crop insurance. Hemp is one of them. So we do offer an insurance program for hemp in South Carolina, and the closing date to get that coverage is March 15th of 2021. Once again, excuse that 2020. In order to obtain that insurance, you would have to show us that you would have to supply your permit number with us from South Carolina Department of Agriculture, and you would have to have a contract by the end of the coverage period in order for that coverage to be counted. So for those who are possibly operating or growing hemp on heirs property, the 2018 Farm Bill gave us some alternatives to basically get you added to that farm number. What we can do now is basically you can show us who is in control of that farming operation, or who is in control of that land. The next slides will show us some examples of stuff that you can supply us. So tax returns over the previous 5 years would be something you could supply, as well as a receipt showing who's paying the taxes, and a list of other documentations. Essentially, we're just going to make sure that we have one person is in control of the land, and that person will be, for our purposes, considered the owner. And once again, this is in the case where you're operating heirs property. And if you are producers in that situation, feel free to call us. My number will be on the next slide, and we can kind of talk more in detail of what you can supply to make sure you can get that farm signed up and put in your name. All right, here's our contact information. Ms. Sabrina Bryant is a state outreach and communications coordinator in Columbia. She'd be a great point of contact, as well as there's the link again for all South Carolina county offices. The Orangeburg County office number I put on the slide because that's me and Chris. Yep, and of course my extension also is 8906. And you'll hit 2 when you call in on that number. That number will also ring NRCS. There'll be option 3. And then I also included a link at the bottom with FSA news and updates. That will basically show you where our fact sheets are, how you can sign up to Gov Delivery. That's getting emails monthly from us, as well as we have a text alert system where we can send you text with pertinent information for what signups are going on in that month. Once again, if you're not Orangeburg County, there is a FSA county office that supports your county. So if you're Berkeley and Charleston, that county office is going to be on Rivers. Down in Charleston, in North Charleston. Trying to think of other neighboring. Colony County, that one's going to be in Walterboro. Dorchester, that one's going to be in St. George. So no matter what county you're in, you're going to have support from a FSA office. And that link will show you the phone number and the email and who you can get in touch with if you're not Orangeburg County. That is all we have. If pending any questions.
I have one question. What if you don't
Yes, ma'am.
what if you don't have a farm number for the plot that you plan to grow hemp on?
Yeah, so you'll have to get one. You will have to go to your, so whatever county you're growing in, that will be the FSA office you would use. You know, like we talked about in the slides, you would supply either the lease or the deed to that local FSA office, and they'll get you that farm number.
Excuse me, what
Thank
type of contract is needed for NAP?
So we would need to see a buyer's contract. So I think I heard the question right. What kind of contract would need it for NAP insurance?
That's correct. So if you don't have a buyer's contract, then you don't qualify for insurance?
Correct. We have to see an agreement from a buyer by the end of the coverage period. You don't have to have it at the initial sign up, but you have to have it by the end of the coverage period.
Okay.
Yeah. And we deem the coverage period to the normal harvest date. So
Is that contract? Sorry.
Okay, thank you. If you could hold your questions until the end of the program. Thank you so much, Jody and Chris. Up next, we will, let me turn my camera on. Up next, we will have Vanessa Elsula. Again, she is the program coordinator for hemp for the state of South Carolina. And she does this through the South Carolina Department of Agriculture. And Vanessa will walk us through how to submit, or how to complete and submit the application for your hemp permit. Vanessa? Let's see. Did you
Can you hear me?
Okay, yes, we hear you now.
Okay, good afternoon. So I am just going to go on our website and I'm going to walk everybody through our application process. Let's see. See, did my screen pop up?
Yes, it's loading now.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay, so this is our main SCDA webpage. You're going to, so what I did also, you guys will all get a PowerPoint presentation of exactly what I'm doing right now. I just snipped it on each page just to show you exactly what you need to do. So you're going to go over here to the Hemp Farming Program tab. And this page is basically everything hemp farming program related. So we got our applications right here, all the forms when you become a farmer, and after you get your permit, we'll explain that through orientation. You don't have to worry about that right now. All of our resources, any news releases we put right here too. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna go to the hemp farming program permit information and application. You're going to click here to apply. And it's going to bring you to this page. So this page is basically the instructions. It tells you exactly everything you need to do, what the new changes are, key information, which is your background check and FSA number. Now this is a requirement, so my suggestion would be to get your FSA number first, because if we receive your application and there's not an FSA number listed on it, then it will be denied. And you also can get your background check after you submit your application. We're running background checks right now, so we have to receive your background check by February 28th, the deadline. And it goes in a little bit of a more detail. This is where you obtain your background check. You go through Identigo, you'll click that link and you'll put your zip code or your address in there. It'll show you the closest Identigo location. When you make an appointment, you're going to do the drop down list for Department of Agriculture Industrial Hemp. And so when you get your fingerprints, that background check goes directly to my buckets to review your background check. Tells you about the deadlines. And click here to confirm and continue application. Now I'm just going to put random information in here, but this is the first page. This is basically the contact information where we need everything listed so we know how to get a hold of you. So I'll just put in all my stuff. And save and continue. Oh, okay, so we did this on purpose. So if you don't put a populated field that is required, it won't let you go to the next page. So we're trying to go through everything to help you to have a completed application, if that makes sense. Now, if you ever need help and it's a system related issue, you won't call us. You'll go down to this part right here where it says click here for technical support. That's if you're having any issues uploading anything, if it's not SCDA related. Now, if you have any questions, you could always call us. Okay, so this is the second page. I'm going to put all your information in here. Driver's license number. I'll make one up. Let's see. Now, when you get to here, you're going to insert your field location. Now, I get a lot of questions. Do I need a field, or what if I don't have any type of land that I want to grow hemp on? Well, that's what we're basically permitting. We're permitting you and land. Now, if it ends up to be that you're going to change it, that's perfectly fine. You could lease land from a landowner. We will want to see a lease agreement. So you'll click on that. Your field name, outdoor, greenhouse growing area, or both. Now, my suggestion to keep things aligned, if you have a growing location, outdoor and indoor, I would do it separately, even if it's the same address, just to stay a little bit more uniformed. And then attach aerial photo. Now, this aerial photo, you can go onto Google. You can go onto Google Maps, or you could also upload your FSA map that they give you. And you don't have to worry about the coordinates. We changed that this year to make it a little bit easier. So you're just going to put the address in, click find coordinates, and it finds it for you. Make sure you put the number of acreage. Now, say for instance, you own 40 acres. You're not sure if you want to grow on 40 acres. You might grow on half. You could put the 40 acres there. We will not hold you to that. That 40 acres will be permitted. Now, when you submit your planning report, is basically letting us know what you plan to do with your hemp, what locations you're going to have, what varieties you're going to have. That's when you'll put in how many acres you're actually going to grow on. So if you want to maximize the acres you have now, that's perfectly fine. It's the same cost for minimum acreage, maximum acreage. So I would put whatever acreage you have in that field right there. And that's for indoor square footage if you have a greenhouse operation. And I'll just put own, but if you put leased, it's going to prompt you to submit your lease agreement. And you'll add the field. Oops. Okay, so then all of that's right there. And you can close and update. Go on to the next. Now, this business information, this is if you have a farm name already and a farm address and city and all of that. This is not required. This is just, if we get emails from a farm name, we want to be able to know who the permit holder is. So if you are, you have a farm email address and we're receiving those emails from you, that would be a good way to put all your stuff in there. Now, don't feel like you have to make something up to put it in there. Answer these questions. So residents, we got some questions yesterday. So if you owned land or any type of property in South Carolina, you will be able to get your permit. Now, if you are an out-of-state resident and you don't own land and you're trying to lease land here, that wouldn't make much sense. Now, if you're trying to do a family venture, one of the big things here is the hemp farmer that gets a permit is going to have to be present when we take sample collection. So if you're going into this with your family and they're the ones that are going to be on the property and they own the land, but you want to be involved, that would be a hemp handler if you want to do the transportation, something along those lines. Now, you want someone present. We won't meet your brother or wife or husband to do a sample collection. You all get ID cards when you're issued a permit. So we'll ask for that ID card when we go take your sample collections because you have to sign off on the sample. Now, as far as the background check, we're looking for a felony and a drug felony in the last 10 years. So if you don't have a felony in the last 10 years, you don't have to worry. And then all of this could change for you. This is just more of communication with Clemson Extension or any other types of groups that ask us how many farmers are growing for fiber or grain or CBD production. It's just for our own sake, just to have this in our state to represent our state properly. Now, as far as the obtaining your seeds, if you don't know, that's fine. You can just put NA. Now, why we put this on the application is because we want you all to think about where you're getting your seeds from. Anybody that sells seed to our state or in our state have to have a seed license through the Department of Agriculture. That is not through the hemp program. It's any seed, any commodity. So if you are talking to a seed provider in Oregon, just let them know, well, you have to have a seed license through Department of Ag, and you could still do business with them, but prompt them to do that. And then you can put their license number there. Now, if you don't have this information, we're not going to deny your application. Okay, let's see. What did I do wrong? Okay, I didn't upload my driver's license. So we have you attach your driver's license, and we also have you attach a picture because you're going to be getting an ID card with your picture on it that says hemp farming program on it, and it's going to have a QR code. And where did my picture go? It's going to have a QR code. So if you are traveling with hemp in your possession and you get stopped by law enforcement, all they got to do is scan that QR code and your permit will come up immediately through our KRS system. Okay, and then that's it. And then you pay your $100 application fee. This is non-refundable. And then the $4.50 for KRS. Now, you don't have to pay your permit fee at this time. So what the process is you'll complete this. We're running background checks. We are looking through your applications. You will get a message from us letting you know if you're missing something on your application or we need clarification on something. So we are reviewing applications now. We're reviewing background checks. The link gets closed down at 4:30 p.m. on February 28th. That link will go away for a whole entire year, so I wouldn't wait to the last minute. So once you pass the application process, you pass your background check, we will send you a link to for an invitation for orientation. They're going to all be in person. We're going to be COVID friendly. We're having 8 different sessions to space everybody out. And we'll explain the whole entire program, the new changes, what's required of you as a farmer. You listen to everything. Now, at that moment, if you feel like you don't want to be a part of this program, that's perfectly fine. You don't have to pay your fee. You could opt out. If you do want to be part of the program, you'll sign your participation agreement and orientation, and we will send you a link to pay your $1,000 permit fee. You'll get a permit through your email, and you'll also get a hard copy. Now that pretty much wraps it up. I could clarify anything if anyone has any questions, or if you guys are ready for questions and answers. It's up to you.
Sure, of course, Vanessa. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
We do have a few questions coming in, so I'll kind of start from the bottom and work my way up.
Okay.
Our first question is there a land size requirement? For example, less than 1 acre?
No, not at all. You could get a permit and just grow a couple plants just to try it out if you wanted to. There's no minimum.
Okay. Marquez Wortham asked, if I'm not a South Carolina resident but leasing land here, how do I go about my application for licensing?
Okay, so if you're not a resident but you are leasing land here, so my question would be, do you live here now and did you just move here? What's the scenario? So I know how to answer it.
Okay, Mr. Wortham, do you want to unmute yourself and?
Yes. Yes, I currently live here. I'm in school. I'm a student.
Okay.
But I'm leasing 4 acres here.
Okay. Okay, so that's perfectly fine. So you'll just give us the lease agreement, and then you have the address here, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So that's perfectly fine. What flags us is if we get an application with a Georgia address or a Tennessee address, and that's their mailing address and everything, that'll flag us. But no, you're perfectly fine. The resident requirement isn't you have to be a resident for a year or anything along those lines. So you're fine with that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Next question from Anjanette. Can I hold multiple licenses for various locations?
Okay, so if there's, I think I understand the question. So if you're a permit holder, you could have 3 different locations on your application. You could also have 1 location on your application, and throughout the year, you could accumulate more land or lease more land and just have an acreage amendment. You could always make changes throughout the year. It's $50 for an acreage amendment to add land. But that's why I was saying if you have 40 acres, you might want to maximize that, because if you change it later on, we will charge a fee. But if you accumulate land throughout the year, you could always add that. So yes, the answer is you could have more than 1 property underneath your permit.
Okay. Yeah, she placed in the chat that she has land in Columbia and Saluda.
So I would put that at different locations, growing locations on your original application.
No, I'm not quite sure. Thigpen Farms. They're asking renewable at what cost, but I don't know. Thigpen Farms, if you want to unmute yourself and maybe ask your question directly. Thigpen Farms. Okay. Well, maybe we'll come back to you.
Okay.
Ron asks, if you start out with a small backyard hemp license and then purchase 5 acres of land, can you transfer the license from the backyard to grow on your new 5-acre land purchase location?
Okay, so I'm going to answer that in 2 parts. So one part is if you have a home and you have farmland in the back that you have a FSA number for, that you can grow on that site. But we don't give permits to like garage situation, something that's attached to your home. So this might be a question for Jody. Do you guys give FSA numbers to backyards if they want to grow commodity in the backyard?
Yeah, so the only requirement we have, it's got to be greater than 1/10 of an acre. So any land greater than 1/10 of an acre, we can put a farm number to it. It doesn't have to be the traditional field. It can be a garden size area.
Okay. So what we won't accept though for us for SCDA is growing hemp in your garage that's attached to your house. That's part of our state plan. And if you wanted to transfer it, what it would be considered would be an acreage amendment. You wouldn't transfer it. So you would, if you accumulate 5 acres later on, what you're going to do is get the acreage amendment. It's on our website. Fill out all the information, submit a map, pay the $50, and then we approve that land. So you could just add it to your permit instead of transferring it.
Okay. For Jody, is there an online application for NAP?
There is an application online. It's going to be, the form you're looking for is going to be a CCC. So that's 3 C's, 471. However, it's going to have to be automated in our system before we can complete the application. So you could pre-fill one out and turn it in for us, but we're still going to need your signature on an automated form. Probably your best bet with applying for the NAP insurance would be contact your local FSA office and just get them to do it the automation way for you. It'd be a lot easier too on both parties.
Okay. My husband and I, this is Rachel. She says, my husband and I own 25 acres in South Carolina. However, only his name is on the deed. Should his name be on the application for the license?
Is he going to be the one that we meet at the field to get sample collections?
I think it might be, I think we would both be present.
Okay. Okay, just to make it easier on you guys, whoever is more present for sample collections and communication. So you could always communicate with him if he's a permit holder and we're going back and forth with you through email. If you have questions, that's perfectly fine. But what we want is to see whoever the permit holder is to get that sample collection. So it might be easier to put it in his name since he's on the deed.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so back to Fig Pen Farms, Vanessa.
Okay.
The question is, are there any other renewable costs after one submits for the initial permit? Do they have to renew? Are there any costs that they have to pay again?
Okay, so this is every year you have to reapply like just a brand new application. You still have to get a background check. You still have to pay the $100 non-refundable application fee, and you pay the $1,000 permit fee. Now, I could say this, our department is not funded in any type of way. We've asked for money to be allocated towards us. So if our calls are answered, then in the future, the permit fees may go down. That's what we're really hoping. But you'll have to reapply. So it's not considered a renewal. It's considered reapplying. You'll get a brand new permit number, brand new everything.
Okay. Latson asks, financially, how how is profit calculated? Is it by weight or square feet?
Is that question for me or is it for Dr. Florence?
All right. So, I mean, I can answer that.
Okay.
So the profit it's usually answered per acre, and also depending on what you're growing, whether you're growing for CBD oil, as I mentioned, or for fiber. But those information are our next series of webinars would actually cover all of that, the economic portion of your decision making, the market value of the different types of hemp plant that you'll be growing. And that's why in the presentation I mentioned you need to know your seeds, or we say genetics, because you need to make sure that your seed source it's a good one, so that that calculation will actually be what it's supposed to be.
And I think it goes, I mean, the amount you get for your hemp, it goes into a lot of different things of what, if you're growing for CBD, they're going to look at your certificate of analysis, see how much CBD you have. I know that when the market was pretty good, it was, say for instance, your CBD was 15%, they were giving you 2 points per percent. So you were getting $30 per pound. I know that went down a little bit. So they're going to check your COA to see how good your hemp is, and I believe they're going to do it by weight, and that's what I know about CBD, but I'm not too sure about fiber.
And also for those who for those who don't know what COA is, your certificate of analysis. When you start growing hemp, when you get your samples and it gets tested, you get an analysis of all the profile and some of the things that I included in my presentation, all of the different compounds, THC concentration, CBD concentrations, and that's what she's referring to. So the 15% is pretty good, but it varies, and that's where your genetics comes in. And so the other thing that people don't talk about also, the organic hemp, currently it has to be grown organically. You cannot use pesticides or herbicides. So if your hemp has any traces, if your CBD oil has any traces of any type of pesticides or herbicides from your soil, maybe from previous use, then it also makes the profit margin that you're getting go down. So all of that has to be taken into consideration. And that's why you need to know, be very, very knowledgeable before you begin. And of course, the good news is that we are here to help you, give you all of the knowledge and skill base that you need to make sure that you're getting the right products at the end.
Thank you so much. El Drame asks, how long is the process to securing the license after application is submitted?
So the deadline is February 28th. We're going through the applications right now. The first week of March, you'll get an invitation for orientations. Orientations are the second and third week of March. It'll be a 4-hour session. And so you'll be hearing within the week of when the applications close down. So we're working on all of that stuff right now. And please feel free, if you haven't heard from us and you haven't got an email from us saying that you needed to fix something, you can call our number. We can pull up your application and let you know the status of it. If you're missing anything, if you feel more comfortable with that, that's perfectly fine. We have staff here to answer your call.
Okay, now there's David DeWitt. I don't know if he's making a comment or asking a question.
Hi, David.
Huh?
I just said, hi, David.
Hey, Vanessa, I was just answering the question about how hemp is sold.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So Derek Muhammad asked, is SCSU or Clemson sponsoring hemp for fiber production? And if so, are there acreage minimums, seed or genetic requirements, etc.? And Dr. Anuro, you can answer based on SC State at least.
Right. So when he says sponsoring, that's the loaded question. So can he clarify what he means by sponsoring? And then I could be able to answer that. I want to make sure that I understand what he's trying to.
Sure, Mr. Muhammad, please feel free to unmute yourself.
Hi, Dr. Anur. I just wanted to know, sponsoring, I mean, are you planning on having any studies or anything like that for fiber production, or do you have any vendors who have fiber production or are looking for that this year?
Yeah. Yes, we are going to be doing research on both the fiber, all the genetics, the fiber, the grain, the oil, and a combination of fiber and oil, because of course, depending on the cultivar you have, it can produce both. So we'll be doing research on that, and we'll be partnering with some farmers, but we're partnering with farmers who have already grown hemp, at least for a year or two. And so that's what we'll be doing. So those will be our demonstration farmers. And then of course, we will give them all the resources and tools that they need. And then we collect data from those farms. Plus also, SCSU also has a 200-acre farm. Part of that farm will be allocated to growing and researching on industrial hemp.
So how would one get information on the becoming a partner with SCSU or Clemson, Dr. DeWitt, if you don't mind jumping in as well?
Well, you can reach out to the 1890 office, and of course, they're probably directed to me, but the decision, Dr. Whiteside is the director of the SCSU 1890 Research and Extension Program, but I'm the one who will be heading the research for hemp. So if you're interested, you reach out to us, then we'll let you know. But like I said, this year we probably will be increasing partnering farmers every year. So if you're not part of our cohort for this year, then at least you will look forward to year 2 or year 3.
Yes, and if you'd like, you may send an email to SC State 1890-1890, and that's all one word, at scsu.edu, and we will definitely direct you to the appropriate person on staff at 1890. So.
And also just, I also have my contact information at the end of the slide. So you can use that as well.
Thank you all.
So if we plan to grow, not for profit, but to feed our livestock, is that an option?
Well, it depends. When you say feed your livestock, are you talking about the leaves, or I'm not quite sure.
Rachel.
The grains you can, the leaves and the other parts of the plants. Yeah. I can't tell you enough research where it's directly fed to livestock, but you can use the grains are usually used good for livestock, and the seeds.
We've done some research about it. We have pastured pork.
Right.
And we've done some research about feeding them hemp and the plants and just the protein content. We're trying to move away from using commercial grain.
Right.
That's what I was wondering, if that's
right. Yes.
Or just
the hemp seed is loaded with and again, I didn't want to put too much on this webinar because this was just for licensing. But the hemp products, the seeds they're loaded with proteins and omega fatty acids, which are good for not just livestock but for people. So yes, you can absolutely.
I just wanted to be certain that, you know, the reason for our application would be applicable to really what we wanted to use it for.
Yes.
Thank you for answering my question.
Yes.
Hemp grid. I'll be diving into some of these questions in a little more detail in the webinar next week that you'll be receiving information on. So there'll be more to come.
Great. Thank you so much, Jason. Let's see. Can you use anything for grass control in the row and row middles? Would that be something, Dr. Anuro, that you would address in your upcoming webinars?
Yes. Yes, there's things that you can use. Right now, people use type of straws, and cover crops are also used. And some people just use plastic to cover for wheat. But part of what we'll be talking about is green agriculture. So cover crops and other types of straw or hair materials that can eventually decompose and become part of organic soil.
Okay. Cindy Ayers Elliott asks who will be doing the processing? I'm not quite sure. That's not.
I have a couple things to say.
Okay.
I wanted to circle back with the hemp and feed. We also have a feed and food department here in the Department of Ag, and that's been a big topic for us, meeting with the feed department. Hemp is not considered a approved ingredient for commercial ag. If you feed it to your animals just for your own personal sake, then that is approved. But if you send a label to our department that has hemp in it, it's not considered an ingredient just yet. There's a lot of research they're going through right now. I know it makes sense. I know we all know, you know, the benefits of it, but it has not been approved as an actual ingredient just yet. Derek chimed in on that right now. I wanted to approach that situation. And then another one, I wanted to answer the question for processing. We have a list of processors on our website. Processors get permitted through us also. And what that is you can grow hemp, but you cannot process your own product into oil. You cannot extract it. So what we do is we have people apply for the processing permit. They have to have a building. The fire marshal will come out. They get an inspection by us, make sure everything is safe and ready to go, and it's approved by the city or the county. And then that's when they get their permit. So that's an extra safe zone for you. And so you can go on our website and see the processors that have been permitted through South Carolina Department of Ag. You could also go outside of the state if you wanted to process outside of the state too. So that's just our resources that we have.
And also, I might add, also part of what the SCSU 1890 office, part of what we'll be doing will be helping to link people to those resources in case you don't want to go to the website. So we have resources that we can give to farmers who need it. And so there'll be a hub, a place where you can come at our website, with SCSU 1890 website, and you can look for resources. And then, of course, a part of our training, ongoing training with farmers, will be giving you those processors where they're located, the ones that are located to you, for both the oil and for those who are going into fiber as well.
Okay. Excuse me, Fig Pen Farms. We are planning to grow for dual use fiber and oil. We own a company that consumes between 4,000 to 5,000 pounds of oil annually for an existing product. How would profit be calculated in this instance?
Okay. I think Jason, yeah, I don't know if Jason is still there, but we wanted to answer a lot of those questions on the next webinar. But again, if you're growing one that is for hemp and grain, and for oil, then of course your calculation will be different because the fiber profit is slightly different from the CBD oil profit. So you have to calculate it based on your input. And your acreage and your genetics, the type of seeds that you have in your growing any of those. So Jason, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Yeah, and obviously, when you're looking at margins, you obviously have to look at the market prices, which in this industry, as I've experienced myself, is in very fluctuation. The market hasn't stabilized yet. There's a great source called Hemp Benchmarks. If you go look up Google Hemp Benchmarks, and there's a free option and there's a paid option, but you can get up to date pricing for all different types of hemp products. And then cost of production obviously varies depending on the equipment and all of the aspects of your individual farm. I know Clemson Ag Econ expert Dr. Nathan Smith has worked on some cost of production numbers. I haven't seen any updates from last year, but David DeWitt might have some of those. But I'll reach out to Dr. Smith at Clemson and see what he has maybe updated for our webinar next week. But a lot of things to consider, and market prices are obviously one of the main ones in addition to your costs.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a limit on the number of licenses given to produce hemp?
We are unlimited. So if you qualify, you'll get a permit.
Okay. Cindy Ayers Elliott asks, does it have to be organic? I'm assuming she's asking the seeds or hemp.
You have to grow it in an organic manner, so you can't put any pesticides or anything like that on your hemp. So you'll be following, David, if you're still on, is it the B category, the list of things that they could apply to the hemp?
Yeah, Vanessa, I just posted our link to the Clemson website. There are 25B pesticides that are available that you can use, but they're mostly, they're basically chemicals that aren't really labeled for any particular crop. There are a couple of pesticides that are available that have hemp mentioned on the label, but they're still 25B type products.
Okay.
But they're on our resource list in the chat. I put our link to our hemp page, and there's some information there. Got budgets and that kind of thing are available there.
Thank you.
But I just want to add too, if you're growing CBD oil, you have to be very careful as well, because especially since the CBD oil, your profit margin is actually higher when it's 100% organic. So those are some other factors you have to think about.
Okay. Let's see. Mr. Omer, I believe your question about fiber processors would be something we'd address in our follow-up webinars. So if you would just be on the lookout for an upcoming webinars, and we'll be sure to have Dr. Anuro or Jason Ergel to be able to provide you with that information. Let's see. I just lost my, was another question. It was something about 2 licenses. Okay, so would we have to apply for both permits if we want to process ourselves on a small scale?
Yes.
Processing.
Yes.
Okay. And I guess Rachel wanted to clarify because she was she had asked about the commercial feed, and so she said she doesn't grow commercial feed. They just want to feed the hemp seeds or the hemp to their hogs.
Okay.
Can the hemp grow? Can the hemp grow for water-based aeroponics? I don't know if I'm asking that correctly.
So, are we talking about hydroponics, aquaponics?
Hi, this is Cindy. We're talking aeroponics, which is a form of ponics, but it's individually based, similar to, but it's contained based itself, and it's called aeroponics or tower gardening, pretty much. But it's the proper term is aeroponics, similar to hydroponics.
Okay. I don't see why not.
Okay, I was gonna say yes.
Yes. Okay. And my follow-up to that, and thank you so much for answering. If you're not an organic grower, still you can, as long as you grow into this organic practice, it is still considered organic if you don't have a USDA stamp organic.
I would suggest that you do at least take workshops on getting certified as an organic grower, but you can follow the rules and regulations for hemp in particular. That would be your best bet. And there are workshops. We do give workshops on organic farming or gardening, but Clemson actually does the certification for the farmers. So that's some of the things that we'll be providing for farmers who are around here.
There's organic growing, and then there's certified organic growing, I guess you would say.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are a certified organic grower, that puts you one step ahead of others, because that means that your product, again, it's really good.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Do you have to worry about THC levels in fiber production?
Yes. Yes, because the rule, and I don't think the rules have changed. It's still, the threshold is still 0.3%, correct?
Yes.
And there is a little margin of error, about 0.06%, give or take, from that. So the answer is yes, you have to worry about THC.
Okay. Are there any resources or future conversations pertaining to finding buyers for CBD oils produced organically?
I can say from our end, yes, because those are some of the resources we'll be providing, linking farmers to potential, it'll be a resource list of companies that buy and processors, but it's their decision to decide who they selling to. But yes.
Some resources on slides next week that go into detail on where to find buyers and places to go, and communities and forums that can connect you with the industry.
Right.
I have a question for the background check. If the schedule is full, what do you do next? What's your next step?
I would look for a different location. You may need to drive a little bit further, but I would definitely get that in as soon as possible, because we're not going to accept any after the 28th.
Okay. With the USDA final rule coming out, will there be any changes to SCDA hemp program this year?
Okay, so as far as the new rule that came out, our state plan is solidified. That's going to stay the same. There has been a couple different changes. We'll talk about that in our orientations. It's on hold right now because of the new administration. So we're not going to get word from USDA until March 22nd. So there's only going to be 3 minor changes, and we won't know if that's going to be utilized this year or if it's going to be utilized the following year. So we're just waiting word from USDA.
Okay, and just one final question. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to go ahead and drop them into the chat. One question from Latson asks, what causes high THC levels?
So, well, there's a couple of, the first one is the genetics. That's why you need to know your seed source, or if you're using seedlings, your seedling. There's so many varieties, and the varieties have different concentrations of course, CBD, but many of them are supposed to be, if they're selling it to you, it's supposed to be producing 0.3%. But there are some environmental conditions that would make that go high. Environmental factors like light intensity, soil nutrient, type of nutrient or lack of nutrients. So when plants are under stress, they tend to produce some of these compounds, and also, so you have to check your seed source, make sure that you know where you're getting it, and of course, make sure that you know also the nutrient elements that are supposed to be given to your hemp, and we'll cover that in our webinar training. And so those are the things that could change that ratio of CBD and THC. So environmental conditions and genetics. And environmental conditions, of course, meaning the soil. Also pests. Also, if you have pest infestations in your hemp farm, that causes stress to the plants, and they may start producing more of the THC. So there's a combination of factors.
Great, thank you, Dr. Anuro, for answering that question. We do not have any additional questions that have come in. I'm going to take just a few minutes. If Vanessa or Jody wants to give any last minute comments, I will open the floor to both of you. Vanessa, we can start with you if there's anything else that you want to add.
Okay, I had a question for Jody actually about the NAP. What would the FSA office need from us, from SCDA? Is it only a permit that the farmer needs to show you? Do you need, and you mentioned a buyer's contract. So I just want to clarify if you needed anything from us other than them showing you proof of the permit.
Yeah, so the only thing we'd need from the producer would be the actual permit number.
Okay.
Last year we were just we could take a copy of it and run a copy off on the machine, or a copy of the license with the permit number. And then, like I said, we'll also need that buyer's contract for the coverage to be set in stone. The reason they requested the buyer's contract with the Farm Bill was to ensure that it was being grown for commercial use. So that's the caveat to having the contract.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
And as far as anything else on my end, we went over all the resources, and you'll have a follow-up for the PowerPoint presentation I put together of everything I went through today. Please feel free to give us a call if you have any further questions, or if you think of something later. We're here to help you. So we want this year to be successful, and we're here Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. So.
Well, Vanessa, we just had 2 questions to come in. So,
okay.
What's the cost of the processor permit, and is the process the same as a grower's permit?
Okay, so that's a little bit different. So the processing applications different in the sense of you have to submit a business plan, and you have to submit your certificate of occupancy that you get from your city or your county. So that's basically the city or the county going out to this building, making sure it's safe. The fire marshal's involved with that. You're also asked if you're going to be processing the F category or the G category, which means is it going to be woody type material like a fiber processing facility, or are you going to be using chemicals? That'll go into your application. And you'll also need an inspection from us when you're done with with all of that. You'll submit that to us. You also need a weighmaster's license, which is basically going out there and checking your scales. If you're bringing hemp in, you need to have your scales checked. You need to have the seal from us. You'll also need your dealers and handlers license. And that's basically going to the bank and getting a bond for $25,000 because you're exchanging a commodity. So you need some type of coverage that way. You apply for the weighmasters and dealers and handlers through our office. And then we will send an inspector out there, make sure that your facility is up and running, has security, it's clean, sanitized. And then that's the last one. And then you pay your $3,000 fee to become a processor. So this is a big operation. We're looking at big processing operations here.
Vanessa, is the registration fee going to stay at $1,000 for now, or will it go higher as more farmers begin to apply?
No, so that $1,000 permit fee for farming hemp is going to stay the same right now. But if we get funding in the future in 2022, then it'll go lower.
Are there folks working on enterprise budgets for small oil or fiber production going to a processor?
Can you repeat that question?
Is there anyone working on enterprise budgets for small oil or fiber production going to a processor? Maybe Miss Elliott, if you want to expound on your question.
She talking about deciding where to take the product or deciding how much she can make from the product before she takes it to the processor? Is that what?
Yeah, I'm not sure. She says, we mean, is anyone creating a cost versus profit sheet for the farmers?
Oh, yeah. Yes. Part of the webinar series we'll be doing will cover some of that.
Great. Thank you so much.
She has to tune in.
And Monica Dees asks, if you miss the deadline, when is the next opening? And I'm assuming that would be next year.
Yes, so January 1st, 2022. And that's the only deadline we have is for the hemp farming permits. So our hemp handler permits and our processing permits, they're open all year long, and that runs 365 days. So the day that you receive your permit for processors or hemp handlers, it'll expire 365 days later.
Great. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
Dr. Anuro, is there anything else that you would like to say or mention prior to the conclusion of the webinar?
I think I've kind of covered what we're supposed to cover for today's webinar. I just, one thing that I didn't mention when they were talking about a THC level, what could make it water stress. Water stress is also important. So a lot of farmers think about irrigation. So that's very important because if there's stress, water stress, that can also make the TH level go up. But the other thing I want to say is please stay tuned in because we'll be giving several series of seminars that cover a lot of the questions that you've asked today in details. And also there's always resources here at SCSU 1890 office. There's my information there, but also send to SCSU 1890 office and it will be directed to me. And we also have a team of extension agents who will be working with you to help make sure that you get all the knowledge base that you need. I think that's all I have to say for now.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Anuro. And Jody, I didn't ask you, was there anything else that you wanted to mention?
Liz, just one thing, and I might have to get Vanessa to help me.
Okay.
So with the certification with South Carolina Department of Agriculture, is Vanessa is critical that they certify the crop correctly, correct?
With the FSA number?
Right.
Yes, yes. So that's one of the main requirements. We will not accept an application without that FSA number. And then we're also requiring them to report their acreage by the deadline. Because that acreage is reported to the USDA, and then that goes into the grants that they could get and crop insurance, and it goes into a lot of benefits for the farmers. So that FSA number is highly important.
Yeah, so Ms. Liz, just since Vanessa confirmed that, just as long as all the growers remember, don't miss that certification. So you know, good rule of thumb: once the crop gets planted, find your local FSA office and certify the crop, and that way you don't miss any programs that may come down the road with the Carolina Department of Agriculture, and you don't miss any programs that come through USDA as well. As well as obviously we have, you know, all the other major crops as well and livestock. So it wouldn't hurt to get involved with FSA for those reasons as well.
We had a few third-party crop insurance companies contact us, and we weren't represented properly. They had us down for 300 acres of hemp being grown, and we had close to 5,000 that were reported in the beginning of the year. That was the plan. So farmers were not reporting their acreage, and we were able to get on that top 25 states to get the crop insurance. So there's a lot of things out there to help farmers, but we just have to make sure everything's reported properly. So I'm glad you're on, Jody, and we could work well with the FSA office, and whatever you guys need, we have that information for you. So just reach out.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jody.
Well, let me take this opportunity once again to thank our presenters, Vanessa Elsala, who's with the South Carolina Department of Agriculture Hemp Program. And I want to thank Jody Carter, who's the Orangeburg County Executive Director for FSA. And of course, I want to thank Dr. Florence Anuro, who is with SC State 1890 Research and Extension as well. We had several questions in the chat asking whether or not we would make available the presentations that were presented as well as the recording. Most definitely, we will be sending that information to the email addresses that were used to register for this webinar. So if there is another email address that you want us to send that information to, please drop it in the chat box now so we can capture that information, or you can send it to scState1890@scsu.edu. All the contact information for our presenters is listed in the presentations that we'll send to you. As a reminder, we will have our next webinar on hemp, industrial hemp, at 2 p.m. on Thursday, February 18th. You will receive an invitation to that particular webinar so that you can register for the event. So thank you so much again for joining us. This has been a great webinar. We've had a lot of questions. And we definitely know that hemp is an emerging product here in the state of South Carolina. And so we're just excited to be a part of this process and to help you reach your agricultural goals. So thank you again. And we look forward to seeing you next week.